All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to YPN in the Know, where we dive into the journeys, challenges, and successes of young professionals in the AEC industry. I'm your host, Tarek Milner. I'm the Planning and Projects Manager for the Cumberland CID, and I also will be your moderator for today's conversation. Now, this podcast, we'll be taking a look at the relationships between the client and consultant agencies. In particular, how to foster these relationships and what can make young professionals stand out in their workplace today. Now, today, we're excited to be joined by a great panel of professionals from both sides of the coin, each bringing unique perspectives on navigating these unique roles. Now, whether you're still in school, newly graduated, or a few years in and finding your footing, we're glad that you're here. Now, if you're here with us today, links to our panelists' LinkedIn profiles will be included in today's show notes. So feel free to connect and keep the conversations going beyond today. Now, rather than me introducing each of these panelists myself, I will let them introduce themselves. I'm gonna go down the line, and I'll start with you, Imani.
Morning, everyone. My name is Imani Moon. I currently work with the City of Atlanta in the Mayor's Office as a more modern project manager. I'm also a member of Compto Atlanta, where I am co-chair of the membership engagement board, and I'm excited to be part of this podcast.
Thanks, Imani. Okay.
Hey everyone, I'm Rakeem Jackson with Bars Design Solutions. I've been in the AEC industry for about 12, 13 years, been with Bars for about 3 years, and I serve as a local client service lead. I'm also a member of the ACEC Georgia Junior Board, not Young Professional Board, even though we do host all the Young Professional Network events. And I serve as co-chair of the Events and Service Committee.
Thank you. Suleiman?
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Suleiman Rana. I'm the managing director for Douglas County Government. My responsibilities include overseeing departments such as DOT, Public Works, and our transit agency, which is called Connect Douglas. I've been in the industry over a decade and have been contributing towards development of our infrastructure here in the state of Georgia. I went to Georgia Tech for my bachelor's and master's, and thank you for having us. Happy to be here.
Fantastic. Well, thanks, everybody. So to kick off today's conversation, I guess I want to, we're going to go around the table throughout the podcast. I want to start with you, Suleiman, and I wanted to get a county perspective from you. Specifically, in my work with the Cumberland CID, I have the opportunity to work and partner with Cobb County on a lot of our projects. And I wanted to kind of ask you, how do you, from a county level agency's needs, how do your needs differ from a GDOT or a Beltline?
Sure. Well, county by itself, it's a rather larger government as a whole. But if you compare it with GDOT, I would say we are slightly closer to the sun. To put it in an easy way, we can be faster. We can make decisions with much more flexibility than a state agency can, while also following all of the mandates and compliance requirements. So I think being in the county government gives you a greater decision-making power, ability to move faster, and that then lays the foundation to be more innovative, be more cost-effective with your approaches. One thing that I like about county government is that we often hold town halls, we hear from public, and then that's your opportunity to hear one day and then start an initiative the next day. And then everybody's very well connected, from public to appointed officials to elected officials. So it's basically a close-knit family of 3 different stakeholders trying to do things better. So I think that mechanism just sets up a very interesting stage for you to do better.
Yeah, that is very interesting, especially, when you think about think about your stakeholders. Obviously the county, you have voters that you have to, different, positions have to think about, and really getting that buy-in from the public is, I'm pretty sure, very important in different projects that you guys do from day to day.
It definitely is.
Yeah, absolutely. And then kind of, shifting gears a bit, I want to shift towards you, Imani. I want to touch on your unique experience in working with GDOT and the City of Atlanta. So does working at a municipal level versus a state level change what you expect from the consultants that you work with?
Yeah, so I've had the opportunity to work on both sides, working at GDOT and then working at various municipalities as well. And I believe that it doesn't change the goal. It's just that when you work at a municipality level, you have closer knit relationships because you're just working with one consultant, and there's a tighter budget and a smaller schedule to work with versus when you work at a stater level, there's much more stakeholders, and you work with the public as well. You have the county, the city, the state stakeholders, and any other consultants that might join the project. But all in all, it doesn't change the goal of what we expect from the consultant is good work and that we stick to the schedule and the scope.
Okay. Yeah. And then I guess kind of, in response to that, I know, Rakeem, I'm sure you've had the opportunity to work with, both state, city, county officials. So from your perspective, from the consultant side, do you see a difference in working with each of these organizations, or is it kind of more of the same?
Yeah, when working with the state, usually there's some federal dollars attached or some state dollars that has environmental permitting requirements and other compliance requirements.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the local side, you could just have all local funds, and it allows you to bypass some processes that you generally have to do with GDOT.
Mm-hmm.
So we've had some projects like that where we've had GDOT and local participation that was led by locals. LAP type projects where you still have to do those GDOT projects, but the goal remains the same: is to deliver quality and deliver it quickly.
Right. Okay. Absolutely. Good. So I think kind of piggybacking off of that and talking about diving into the relationships between the consultant clients, I want to talk about communication. And kind of in your experience, is there a point where over communication can be a problem? Obviously, going through projects, there's a lot of moving pieces, and you always want to keep that communication kind of river flowing, if you want to, so to speak. But is there a point where you get to that over communication versus when it becomes a problem more than it is a benefit?
I think there can be a point where communication can become an issue. But I think it's important to kind of create a cadence with the client on when they want communication and how they want communication. On the business development side, I've had instances where I've asked a client from an initial introductory meeting, like, how often do you want me to reach back out to you to kind of check what you have coming out, to check what kind of projects you got going on, and check on any issues. And I've heard some people give me, 6 months, and then I heard somebody say every quarter, or somebody else maybe every other month. It just kind of depends on who the person is and kind of how they want to be communicated with, and then you kind of just go from there.
Yeah. And I'll say, from my experience with the CID, it definitely depends on the project and the project type. Obviously, your bigger projects and your longer ranging projects, you don't need that, that every weekly update. But then maybe some of your shorter, faster hitting projects, you need, more of a quicker cadence. Mani or Suleiman, you have any?
Yeah, I wanted to
response?
piggyback off of that. So, working with the city of Atlanta and with FIFA literally 60 days or less out, one thing that I noticed is like with majority of my projects that we have been over communicating. And prior to working with the city, when I worked at projects that had a longer timeline, it was, this is kind of annoying, but now it's like, no, it's needed. Like, we need to talk every week. We went from talking every week to having 2 meetings a week about the same thing, just to make sure that we're all on the same timeline, that everything is getting done. If there's any constraints, that we can discuss them. If not at our Tuesday meeting, that we discuss it on Thursday meeting, and then going into the next week, we know what to expect and what we're expecting to get done. So I can see it on both sides, how it can be annoying, but also how it's beneficial when you have a tighter timeline.
Absolutely.
Well, I think that covers it, but the only thing I would add is that I think it goes without saying communication is key, but frequency should always be on an as-need basis. So if you're talking about projects, I think be intentional about the need, be cautious of your time and your client's time. Mm-hmm. So larger federal aid projects, you don't need to meet more often than once a month, pretty much. Right. But then if you're working on FIFA, you pretty much need to meet every week. It's almost here.
Yeah.
And then as far as business development goes, it's important for consultants and the agencies. So, but that too, you have to be very proactive. Don't solely depend on personnel. Use resources such as websites of the county itself, the city itself, track any projects, public hearings that are coming up, because those are indications of some projects that may be coming online. Also follow agencies like the state and ARC to track funding, because that oftentimes leads to new projects. And then once you connect all of those dots, having that one-on-one communication will be much more effective. So end of the day, I would just say simplicity and clarity are the key in communication, and as less as possible, but make sure it's enough.
Yeah, I think everybody would agree that the goal of any project is just to make things as efficient as possible. Whether no matter how big or small that project may be. And actually, I am glad that FIFA was brought up, because that leads me into my next question. So everybody knows FIFA right around the corner. I think it's been the topic of everyone's conversation, especially in our industry. And so I know that now that we've seen all the construction and the road closures as of late, but I wanted to ask you, Imani, about the consultants that you have had a chance to work with throughout this process, and as far as the maintenance and construction has been going on for the past few months. Now, so what does the arrival of the FIFA World Cup do, or how does that affect the dynamics when working with consultants, especially given a lot of these expedited project deadlines?
Yeah, so I've been telling everyone FIFA is like my Olympics. So I wasn't even born when the Olympics came about. So this is like my time to shine with FIFA and having my footprint in the city, and the collaboration of FIFA in the city of Atlanta and other municipalities that are collaborating as well. And I think with FIFA, it's been good and bad. It's been good because it's a lot of opportunities that are coming to Metro Atlanta. And then the only bad thing is that we're trying to cram in all this work with such a short timeline. And so because of that, it's just literally projects on top of projects on top of projects. And as a project manager, your biggest thing is your schedule. It's like, okay, I know that I have this amount of time to get this task done. But then when you have 10 other projects that are surrounding your projects, it's like, okay, I need to figure out if we can do this in the morning, or if weekends are an option, or even if we can do evenings are an option as well. And then that factors in dealing with different consultants and different general contractors and everything, and just building those relationships, and just being very transparent and saying, hey, you guys are doing work on this day, we're doing it on this day, or we may be doing work on the same day. Is it possible if y'all can move y'all time to nighttime, and we can do it during the daytime, so we just won't be affecting each other? And then another good thing about FIFA has taught me the dynamics of different consultants. And you see, working with different consultants for FIFA or just with the city of Atlanta, you see the dynamics of some are just transactional and some are actually like, I don't want to say a family, but you can see that there is structure within their firm. Mm-hmm. Like it's just not transactional. Like they're not just trying to get the work done. Like they're actually trying to build that relationship so that you can, if there's another project that comes about, that you can keep them in mind and say, oh, they did this great work and we want to eventually work with them again. So yeah, it's been nice.
Yeah, I know that's very important. Working, I guess I kind of want to, that was an important point that you said, as far as consultants, really prioritizing that relationship building when working with client agencies. And I just kind of want to ask you about like kind of your experience with, obviously I don't want to say like you've had transactional relationships, but I know there's, different clients kind of have a different approach. But I guess in your experience, when it comes to that, that building that relationship per the project, what can you kind of speak towards that?
Yeah, I think the best way to kind of build that relationship is to do good quality work. Mm-hmm. And then, when you show up to project meetings, be personable. It's good to be professional, but it's also good to know that, everybody there is a human being and we're all working towards a common goal. And so we don't want to just kind of stick to the project. Sometimes you just want to ask somebody just how they are.
Right. And
then, like, let's just say if I wanted to build a relationship with a new client, someone that we're not working with, right? Mm-hmm. I meet them at a ACEC event, or I meet them at, happy hour somewhere. It's just always good to kind of approach them and be kind of yourself, just be authentic. And then if you have some commonalities, it could potentially lead to a relationship. And sometimes it's not good to press because you can kind of push away a client.
Okay, nice. And it's funny because I think you actually answered one of my next question. It was kind of, advice that you would give to a young professional wanting to build a relationship with the agency. But no, I think those are some good talking points there. Now, kind of shifting to you, Suleiman, and your experience with various consultants in your work. Now, if you could change one thing about the client agency relationship in your work, what exactly would it be, and why?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. And, oftentimes we engineers, we like to have consistent themes. We like to get on a project, have established outline of a kickoff meeting, tasks that are coming, and just keep on going with it. I think one thing that would really help is understanding your client. So I've been a consultant myself before coming to this role. I think one thing that we could do better is in the early stages, take some time out to really understand how your client operates. Being on the county side, there are specific processes, procedures that a normal person would know. And then taking that time out and helping or asking questions and just understanding that process will help you navigate through the project much more efficiently. And then, of course, when I approach a project, I'm just very curious about different things that people are doing, different agencies are doing. So it's basically a learning experience too, and you can basically learn how different counties operate. And then no county operates similarly, no city operates similarly. There are shared things, but then there are also many processes and procedures that are significantly different. So I would just say, take some time out to know about your client, know how they have to navigate through the project alongside you as a partner, and just be curious all around.
Yeah. That's great advice.
Yeah.
That's great advice.
And if I could go back to the question
Sure,
that you asked Rakeem
absolutely.
about an advice to young professionals, I would want to add is that be kind. About more than 10 years ago, me and Rakeem worked at the same company, and I needed some help with CAD. And I was looking for somebody who could help me out. And he was the first one to just, drop what he was doing and come help out. And, we are in a very small industry and always have the long game in your mind. So being kind always helps.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's definitely important. I mean, in any industry, any role that you kind of work in, it's really just you always want to be able to foster that relationship with because you never know. Obviously you ask Rakeem for that help, and you never know what help you may need from school and down the line. So it's always good to like you said, it's always good to be kind.
Yep.
And so, I want to kind of pose a question to the group as a whole. And so, we've all worked on various different projects, some good, some bad, some big, some small. But I do want to kind of spend a little bit of time in talking about some of the bad. So we all know every project isn't perfect and have to deal with setbacks from time to time. It's just, it's just the nature of the business. And I think it'll be interesting to hear from both the client and the consultant side on this particular topic. Now, starting with our client agencies, so how would you prefer to receive bad news? Things such as scope creep, delays, budget concerns, and then what does handling that well look like? Because I don't want to say always, but there is going to come a point in time in a certain project where things may be a bit behind or may be a bit over budget, and that's just the nature of the business. But how do you prefer to kind of receive that news?
Well, so, in our industry, especially in construction, the saying is the show must go wrong. So there's always something that will go wrong. In terms of how you prefer to receive that news, I would personally say is that it has to be timely. And by that, I mean not too early, not too late. As a consultant, you are receiving that news, at the same time, right? So you need time to process it. And as a consultant, you have to understand your responsibilities and then what that means for your client. So take that time to process it. And the indication that tells you is when you're ready is when you have at least 3 solutions to a problem and then one that you can comfortably recommend to your client is the time when you have to go talk about it. And then, not saying that those three solutions have to be perfect. Those three and your recommendation may combine, create a new one when you're talking with your client. But that's pretty much the level of preparedness that we would expect. And as if I was a consultant, is something that I would personally do, and that's what I have to add. Yeah, basically.
Nice, thank you.
Yeah,
Imani?
I agree. I think if I was to receive bad news, lately it's just been the deadline. It's like, oh, it's a weather delay, or something came up, or our third party consultant, they don't have the right equipment, so we're looking at another week out, and it's like, okay, I don't mind the bad news. However, how are we going to pivot? What's the solution? Like, do we have another, if they can't deliver the equipment within the week, the new deadline, do we have a backup plan? Do we have another consultant that we can go to that has the equipment? Or if there is if it's supposed to be raining in the morning, and is it possible if we can do the work at nighttime, or is there a possibility that we can do it during the weekends? Like, what are our solutions? So that's how I look at everything, and I try to be proactive. And when I do get a schedule, or when I do have a task for that week, I try to look at what would be the negative outpacts of it, so I can kind of plan ahead and say, okay, I know, like, if this goes wrong, this is what I need to expect, and this is how we will address it and move forward and hopefully get towards the goal. Even outside of my engineering world, I kind of look at things with life as that the same way as well. Like, I'm also planning my wedding right now, and so my venue, there's an option to be inside and outside. And every month I've been looking at the weather for September, like, oh, is it going to change? Does it plan to rain? Like, is it going to be a storm? Is it, God forbid, there's a tornado? So it's just like, what are my other possibilities that I can do at this venue so that my day will still be perfect for me?
Mhm.
So.
You know, I think, the tying it back to the wedding planning is
Mhm.
very important, because I went through that struggle a couple years ago myself, and I understand you have to be prepared for anything. You never know what's going to happen.
I did too about 3 months ago.
Oh, wow.
And the
nice.
saying that
Congrats.
show must go wrong applies
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Be patient.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And yeah, and then I guess kind of, speaking on that, kind of receiving that bad news, from your perspective as a consultant, on the other side of that coin, what is the best way, I guess, in your experience, to give that news when you have to give it?
To give bad news. I don't like to give bad news to my clients. Hopefully I can avoid that. But in the case that we do have to give bad news, I think that we also should, like Suleiman said, try to be proactive, try to give the notice in a timely manner, and then also kind of make sure that we do have solutions. But at the same time, when I'm doing that, I also want to be like well informed from my consultant team, like whether it be my internal staff or it be sub consultants. So usually when there is bad news, it usually comes from somewhere else. It doesn't just kind of initiate within right there in the office.
Yeah.
And so when I first receive that news, I want it to be direct. I want it to be usually like a phone call, or in-person meeting, let me know kind of what's happening. And then I like to process that information. I may have some initial questions there. And then I like to go back to the team and kind of strategize on how we can get around that. And then if we can, try to keep it internal and then, make adjustments there. But then if we need to go to the client and let them know, hey, this is something that's definitely out of scope, it came out of left field, which we had to do on a project because it was just a completely new process that we're working through, the GDOT Chapter 11 large encroachment permit process, which they're rewriting that chapter now. It's kind of very new and not much guidance on it. So I was definitely had to get over some hurdles on that project. So.
It's good advice. It's good advice. And then, kind of like, following up with that question, we talked about, what you would like to, or how you would like to receive that news, or how you would like to give that news. But, in thinking back on some of your, direct experience, is there a common mistake that consultants seem to make kind of early in the project from, from consultant perspective or client perspective, in a when you're dealing with a certain project, is there something that oh, okay, well, have to make sure that I look out for this because last time it kind of burned me, so let me kind of keep my eyes out for this mistake that I see consultants may come with.
Well, it's not very often, and luckily, here in Georgia, we have a very professional industry, and everybody goes above and beyond in doing the best that they can. But one mistake that does come to memory is when consultants decide that they're advisors and they're not partners. And what that means is they leave the problem at this is the problem. What do you want to do? Whereas when you see this relationship, you have to really think of it as a partnership. You have to be creative with the client. You have to, like I said, understand how they operate, really understand the ground realities, and then help them navigate through the way. Oftentimes, and this happens most of the time, where consultants come to you with a problem and they're basically telling you or advising you properly throughout the end. They know the ground realities, they know the constraints, and they carve a way out for you, even though you're a very strong stakeholder and you're working with them in doing so. But that is what really partnership means, being in it together. Whereas if there's a large project, you hit an obstacle, and if a consultant comes and says, well, here's a problem, it's going to cost an extra $10 million, what do you want to do? Well, counties don't usually have $10 million to hand out. So, and there are creative approaches that you can take on different complexities. You could split the projects. You could be creative with the design guidelines. You could, and end of the day, maybe it means shelving a project. But let's just make sure we try everything we've got in our pocket too before we get to that stage. So really having that true essence of partnership is key. And then when that's not there, I think that could be a problem.
I like that. Anybody care to add on to that a little bit?
I think he summed it up pretty well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
summed it up pretty well.
Yeah.
I guess I'll add on a little bit. I think that sometimes consultants, given the landscape of the Georgia market, there's a lot of work out here, and everybody's always chasing the car, right? So what happens to the dog when they catch the car? He usually gets hurt, right? He runs off limping. So you kind of got to be cognizant of your resources and kind of who you have available, and don't always kind of chase everything. Be intentional about what your team can handle, and always know that that you're going to be expected to deliver and deliver on time. So make sure that you have the resources when you're chasing this work.
Yeah, I think that is a very, very important point. Everybody has to. You got to know your limitations and really just kind of know exactly what resources you have on hand. So, so that you can actually get the project done, get the work done at the end of the day. Pointing towards Suleiman and Imani specifically, wanted to talk about kind of the other side. I think we just spoke on some of the negatives. Now let's shift gears and lighten up the conversation and talk about some of the positives. Now, obviously, our projects, we have specific schedules, scopes, budgets. But when thinking a little bit outside of that framework, have you ever had a consultant exceed your expectations in a way that had nothing to do with the actual deliverable?
Yes, and I think the key to exceeding expectations is just communication and transparency up front. Is just saying, this may be an issue that we run into, but we decided to pivot and do this instead, and we're still under budget and on time, and that's literally like the best thing ever, because it's like, okay, I don't have to panic in a sense, like I don't have to overreact to figure out what's another course that we can take in order to solve the issue. I think out of all the projects that I've been on that have overexceeded my expectations, as well as the team that I'm working for expectation, it's always been communication. It's the number one thing, just communicating and letting us know what's going on, what's happening. If there was an issue, this is how they solved it, and then just being transparent as well, saying, hey, we're not able to do this weekend, however we can do it this date, we're available to do this, or something came up, there was an emergency, and so we had to push it back. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think communication is very much the underlying theme of all projects and any relationship. You know, whether, like I said, bad communication can ruin a project, just like you communication can enhance any project.
Yep, I totally agree with that. I think the only thing that comes to mind is ownership. I think after communication, taking ownership is very important. Some things coming to mind is a town hall that we had for a project, a rather controversial project where some social groups, showed up in full forces to show their opposition for the project. And what I noticed was that usually when in public domain things get difficult, everybody kind of takes a step back. Public officials are expected to take a step up and manage that situation. But in this one specific town hall, I just saw the consultant taking the front lines and remained calm, very professionally handled the opposition, and very professionally responded to every concern. And of course, there were some points taken to address the public input. But to me, that display of professionalism, calmness, and that sense of ownership was truly exemplary. And one thing that I like is, technical competence is it's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's now the baseline because we have so many competent engineers, companies doing the work in Georgia that is now the baseline. And then things like what I just mentioned really make you stand out.
Yeah. I like that. It's funny that you say that because it feels like you guys are kind of reading my mind a little bit because that leads me into my next question. Talking about just kind of some overall skill sets that young professionals should kind of aspire to or kind of look to grow in the future. So as we provide advice to our young professionals out there, I want to see if we can help them really guide them along the way of their journey on building those skill sets, whether it be soft skills or hard skills. In your experience, as we all grow in our careers, what skills are genuinely hard to find in the consultant market when dealing with client agencies, and kind of what things can help someone stand out as you say. 'Cause I know you touched on technical skills for sure, and I think that's always important in the AEC industry. But are there any skills in particular outside of that, or if you want to expand on that a little bit?
Sure. I mean, like I said, public speaking is a great skill that I advise every young engineer to learn as much as they can. And there is no shortcut. There is no easy way. Being in the public domain, you do it very often, but every public hearing, every town hall is different. So it's really having that mindset that it is somewhat difficult or a complicated task. You do have to do it. What are some of the things that help you? And then everybody has their own things that would bother them, right? So you have to find your own solutions to those. And end of the day, practicing it as much as you can is the key. Don't be afraid to get out there, embarrass yourself, take a shot, do your best, and then each iteration will only help you do better the next time. And then every speaker has a bad day and a good day. So if even after several tries, if there's something that's not working, just keep at it because it is needed. It is part of the job. If you don't need it today, you will need it tomorrow.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that's a very, very good point. I can speak on that public speaking aspect personally. I think so I've been at CID a little over 3 years now, and then after my first year, I was kind of thrown into that fire. Just kind of had to substitute for someone and do a presentation. Very nervous. The most nervous I'd probably been in my entire life. But to your point, I think it goes down to, if you practice, and at the end of the day, practice makes perfect. I mean, I think after that first presentation, I didn't feel like I had it down and now I can go out there and conquer the world. But I think, as you begin to take on more of those responsibilities and those roles, and, at some point, you have to really start to do things that make you uncomfortable. You can't just sit in a space of comfort and say, oh, no, I don't want to do that. I don't like that, so I'm not going to do it. No, because sometimes you might necessarily have a choice. Like for that first presentation and maybe a few, here in between, I necessarily didn't have a choice in the matter of or I didn't know it was coming. But I think, practicing and actually just making sure that you're as prepared as you can be when it comes to public speaking is, I think that's the best. It's the best way to go about it. So, as we go back to some of the skill sets.
Just to piggyback off of that, 100% agree. Just join, and then I think it's also important to join those professional and social organizations like ACEC, COMTO, WTS, NSBE, because you get to craft those soft skills of learning how to public speak. Like I know that when I was in undergrad that we had Toastmasters, and it was something that my parents forced me to do because it's like you're going into this career for field where eventually you'll have to speak to different people and you'll have to be able to relate to them, so you need to learn how to craft those skills. And it's like I 100% appreciate that because it's like I learned how to do an elevator pitch. I learned how to talk to someone that's on a level as a CEO, or just to be able to active listen and just be present. So it's just take advantage of those opportunities at different professional and social organizations. And like you said, just don't be afraid of embarrassing yourself. I think that was my biggest thing, is that I was like, I'm young. I just, like, these people are well in their career. I look goofy. I'm about to sound goofy. And then it's like, it really wasn't that bad. Like, you just have to, even if it is bad, like you said, like, you just learn from it and just keep on moving. Like, you know that the next time you get that opportunity, what to do and what not to do.
Right. Absolutely.
And I think, those are kind of some, skills to have as you move up into leadership and you want to be out there. But some people just won't get past that hurdle of, I want to talk and I want to be seen. They just want to be at the desk. But for those people, developing your mentorship skills and mentoring the new engineers that are coming into the industry can really help a firm and really help a client as well. And then also learning about the business of engineering and how projects come about and how people go win those projects, and how you can help the people who are out there trying to market our business and learn how you help from your own perspective.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Like I know when I started early in my career, one thing that I did was, like, you when you're young in your career, it's like you said, you're mostly behind the desk, and it's like you get into a repetition of, I'm doing CAD work, I'm doing design, and I may do a presentation. I'm not presenting it, but I'm doing the presentation, and it's just that. And it's like, okay, what else is there outside of this engineering work? Like, what does my manager do? What does her manager do? What does our CEO do? And all this stuff. So what I started to do is I started to listen to different podcasts of different municipalities or different transit, and see what they do at their organizations that would be beneficial to ours, and see how can I be an asset in that way.
Nice. Yeah. And speaking on, podcasts and organizations, I think another great podcast that an organization puts on for young professionals is YP in the Know. Couldn't pass up on that. So I think it's been a great conversation, just talking about really guiding our young professionals, and really just kind of giving them your experience in, the different, when it comes to navigating these relationships between clients and not clients, consultants and client agencies. So I wanted to kind of shift gears a little bit and go back to you, Suleiman, and talk a little bit about Douglas County. So are there any types of projects that are growing, or any initiatives that Douglas County is putting out there that consultants may not be fully prepared for and probably excited to learn about?
Sure. Well, Douglas has had very interesting history, and we're carving a very interesting path towards the future. So I think when you look back in the past 20 years, what you'll see a lot of growth in Douglas County, but not necessarily infrastructure growth. So there's a backlog that we're trying to catch up on. Now, luckily, we've got SPLOSH programs. We've got a very proactive Board of Commissioners, county administration, who is fully committed to making the necessary investments into the infrastructure. What we're doing now is we're trying to be creative. There are different things we have to address. We have to address the backlog. We have to address the future needs. We also want to embed the technology component into our future projects, and we just want to be on the front lines of everything. We want to be present the best infrastructure that Metro Atlanta can have. We want to be an example of that. So of course that requires money. So we are looking into different funding mechanisms. We're also, our board is considering T-SPLOST at the November ballot. We are maximizing our existing SPLOST dollars. We're being on the front lines of federal and state grants. And end of the day, you'll see a diverse project list coming out of Douglas County. And we're in it right now. People who've been tracking our county, they'll see we've got projects from freight cluster management programs to safe streets for all, pedestrian safety related projects. Then we've got capacity projects that have been on the shelf for a long time. We're now delivering that. And in the future, it's going to continue to be that mix, from pedestrian capacity, safety, and technology related projects. And I'll use this opportunity to share, we're about to finish one of our largest projects in the past 2 decades this month. So we're very excited. And that was a project, it's called Lee Road Widening Project. We started that maybe a month after I started on the job.
Nice.
And a few years in, we're now finishing it. So it's something that I'm personally very proud of.
Yeah. It's always nice to be able to carry a big project across
Yep.
the finish line. Yeah, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then just kind of, speaking to what you can, projects that you can speak to, in regards to the city of Atlanta or even your team, just with the different clients you've worked with, are there any, projects out there that I guess, that you are excited to work on or excited to kind of, let people know about?
Well, I'm always excited when we get any type of NTP to work on any task order.
There you go.
Because that means we're
That's a good
keeping.
response.
That means
Make
that
a lot
we're
of
keeping our
clients
people.
happy.
Yeah, we're keeping our clients happy and we're keeping our people busy and we're bringing in the revenue. But I'm particularly excited about a dual roundabout project we did down in Henry County for GDOT. It's getting built now. They're still relocating utilities, but it's a pretty good project. It's near the city of McDonough, State Route 20 and McGarity Road. It's a pretty nice project, and I'm ready to see that one get built.
Nice.
I think for me, the projects that I'm most excited about, we just wrapped up. Well, we just had our revenue service last month for Summerhill BRT, and this is the first BRT bus rapid transit system of its kind in Georgia. So that was very fun and exciting to be a part of. And now we're moving along to other more modern projects, including the Cleveland Metropolitan ART, and then we have Campbellton BRT coming down the line. So those are very exciting, just expanding transit for all throughout Metro Atlanta so that everyone is accessible for everyone. And that the purpose of the BRT and the ART are that there are more stops, the shelters are a little bit larger, and that the buses are more frequently coming to those stops to access everyone in those areas.
Nice. Yeah. It's always nice to expand transit. I got my master's degree in planning, so I've been a big advocate transit and expanding transit. So yeah, that's definitely good to hear that. Working on that. I want to throw a little bit of a curveball in there. It's okay. But I feel like every conversation, we talk about professional conversations. Is it really a conversation if you don't talk about AI? And then, particularly, when we're, when it comes to managing certain projects and, even building out programs, AI obviously has a big role in that, obviously depending on where you are. So just kind of want to go around the room and then just see if any of you have any specific, dealings with AI or even have an aspiration to incorporate more AI, or I don't know, maybe you're saying AI is not the not the way to go. Just I think it's kind of important, especially we speaking to the young professionals, I think they are coming up in a very different society, especially professional society, than we kind of did, and so just kind of what are your thoughts on this growing trend in our industry?
Well, I definitely think it's the future. It's the way to go. The only regret I have is that it wasn't there when I was in college. But I think every industry will benefit from AI in the future. When we talk about our industries, I think one of the challenges that we all face, more so for public agencies, but also consultants, is the gap in human capital. I think we're not getting enough civil engineers in the industry. I think most of the agencies that I talk to, even consultants, they're understaffed, and they want to hire, but there are some constraints that is leaving the gap in place. So I think technology helps addresses that gap. You could need less people to do the same thing that required a lot more people. Then the cost savings, the innovation, the efficiency that it brings, I think it's very promising. The concern is how do you embed it in your organizations or your processes without compromising your security, your privacy, and your local priorities that an organization or a government would have. And there's a proper approach to it. You have to fully understand what this brings to the table. You have to understand your constraints and how do you merge the two. The sooner you do that, the better. I think it's definitely going to be the future. We use it as much as we can. I think it needs to be embedded in our design practices. It should help ease the pressure that we have on the design side of our industry, and then on the QC side of it, it could really speed things up. It could really address the human capital gap that we have.
Okay. Okay. And then real quick, just I think out of my curiosity, when you say it'll help with the design side, what exactly do you mean?
Well, if you think about our design, there's a lot of manual work that goes into it. I know there's been advancements, but even back when, 5 to 10 years ago, when I used to be on CAD on MicroStation doing 3D, 2D design, I always thought to myself that a lot of this could be automated. But, as designers, we don't have a choice. You have to do it. You have to perfect the design that you've gotten. That 50 to 60% of your design work is manual work that could easily be automated. AI could pretty much tell you how to connect those lines, how to properly tie in elevations, how to have perfection across your deliverables. If you take away that 60% of the load that, competent engineers making, their hourly rates are significant, are spending that time on something that could be automated, there comes your cost savings, there comes your speed, your efficiency. And to be honest, if I was a designer, I'd be much happier.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah, I agree with Suleiman. At Barge, we've added someone to the C-suite that's going to start looking into that type of technology. I don't know where it is in the process, but I know that is one of the initiatives on that, as well as other technology implementations. AI, for me, has really just been a tool and not really something that is kind of integral in my day-to-day work. I've used it to, just read RFQs and RFPs and summarize them really quick before I start really diving into them and reading them myself, just kind of figuring out what exactly is required. Even if like there's a public meeting and I want to go through like 900 pages of notes and I want to get out the stuff that actually affects me, you can just dump that into an AI program and just get a summary. But it's still just a tool. It's not there yet, but I think there are some people that are further along than others.
Yeah.
And at Barge, we definitely want to try to make sure we're not left behind.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree with both. Just using it as a tool, and then I agree with the aspect of the design process is implementing AI. And I was thinking specifically for the ICE tool, where you have to create the for ICE and just using AI for that because it's already confusing. Having a automated program do that work for you would be beneficial. But like you said, I think there definitely needs to be some constraints put on it so as a designer you don't get lazy and you're just dependent on AI just to do the work for you. I think that would be very something as engineers that we will look into in the future of how to implement it so that it's not just a like we're not solely just dependent on it to design our
Mhm.
work. Like we're still, it's just like a kind of like a partnership.
Right.
The day AI can do ice, we
Mhm.
can say it's made it. You know?
Yeah,
So
definitely.
looking forward to that day.
Yeah.
And then just to kind of backtrack a little bit, when you're talking about ICE, if you could kind of explain, kind of or expound on exactly what that is, the ICE tool.
Maybe wrong, but I think it's intersection control evaluation.
Yep.
Okay.
And just like the different options for like if you have a area that you're about to do a project, the different options that you have to implement at that area, whether it's a roundabout, signalized intersection, if there's a dual roundabout, like it just gives you those different, you literally plug and chug different information. It gives you like the options that you have for that intersection, as well as the cost that goes along with it, the benefits, the constraints that you may have, and the alternatives that you have with that intersection. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, well, I think that's an important point. I think I think the moral of the story, at least for me, is, there's a fine line when dealing with AI. It is, again, it is a tool. It is a tool, and I feel like the technology isn't necessarily there yet to be able to, take over every aspect of a project, but it definitely can help optimize and, make our work more efficient. And I think any opportunity that, we get to have that, I think we should use it. I know me personally, I probably don't use AI to its full capacity, but I think I am probably a little more old school and a little more skeptical about AI, and so I do think about obviously your security issues and things like that. But I think it's it's here to stay, and I think it's definitely something like a tool that we should use to our advantage as much as we can. And then, so kind of as we begin to wrap some things up, and really just kind of put a button on things and everything that we talked about, from our, from relationships to AI to, even talking about the negatives and positives of, of the news that we bring or news that consultants can bring to client agencies and vice versa. What is one thing that you would want every consultant or client agency listening to this podcast right now to know and take away that they could potentially put into practice?
I think that just kind of just be intentional about how you communicate with your clients and how you build that relationship. Everything that you do kind of is going to create some type of perception of you, especially at first when you're reaching out to a new client that's never heard of you, and you're reaching out on behalf of your firm. Just kind of be cognizant of that, and always kind of represent yourself and your company in the right way.
Well, I would say for established clients or established relationships, never take that for granted. Always be on your toes to do your best that you can do, and not just for work, for personal life. For your relationships, for your consultant agency relationship, whatever you do, just always be on your toes and see how you can do better. Sometimes you get relaxed in a relationship and you stop giving your best. Anytime you get to that point, just kind of have checks and balances so you avoid getting to that stage. And then I guess being a true partner in everything is key. Be intentional, be vocal, and be proactive. And every small thing gets noticed. So that's all, I guess.
Yeah, I think they summed it up pretty good. They took all the good ones. So just be proactive, intentional, and just to bring it all together, just to be kind. Because you, like you said, you foster those relationships, and you never know who may know who from your consulting firm or from your, your road of engineering. Just, make sure that first impression is a lasting impression.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that wraps it up pretty good. I think the theme of this episode really is about building and fostering those relationships. And whether it's our AEC industry or really any industry that you're into, I think it's relationship building is a key component to just any professional, like to your professional life. You know, I think, you know, when we talk about our projects, I think Amanda, you mentioned it earlier. Like, you know, sometimes you run into certain consultants where there may be a, you know, a transactional relationship as opposed to, you know, that kind of that personal real relationship. But then, you know, you think about as a client agency, okay, and then I can speak on this because, you know, being working for a client agency, you know, the consultant that you're going to choose to work with more so in the future is going to be that one that you have that real relationship with, that makes it easier to kind of work on a project on a day-to-day basis that you're excited to work with. I think, you know, we've all had our run-ins with our not so great clients or not so great consultants. No offense for Keith. But yeah, no, I think there is a big difference, and I think, yeah, really just kind of making sure and personalizing that relationship and not really just thinking like, okay, I'm just trying to get through the end of the day. I think is very important as we go through our daily lives. Well, I think this brings us to the end of today's episode of YPN in the Know. A huge thank you to our panelists, Amani, Rakeem, Suleiman, and thank you for sharing your time, your experiences, and your perspectives. Now, to everyone listening and watching, we hope this conversation gave you something valuable to take with you as you continue building your career in the AEC industry. Thank you for turning in, and we'll see you next time.